testimony. Next, we'll recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Morgan Griffith, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Congressman Rakita and Congressman Blumenauer, for letting me testify in front of your committee today. My priority and the priorities of my constituents for this year's budget is to reduce spending overall. Now, in my district, particularly what they're looking at is the funding for the Environmental Protection Agency and reducing that funding. In fact, I've introduced legislation, H.R. 3641, EPA Maximum Achievable Contraction of Technocrats, abbreviated as the EPA MACT Act of 2013, to cut EPA's funding by a total of 15% over 3 years, with an additional 1 year of compliance left to the discretion of the EPA Administrator. This is similar to the timing of many of EPA's new regulations on businesses and job creators in the United States. Now, we all want clean air and clean water, but do we really need all the thousands of bureaucrats in Washington cooking up new regulations on a fairly regular basis? The bottom line is that the EPA's war on coal is having a devastating impact on the hard-working people of Virginia's 9th Congressional District and on all of those throughout Central Appalachia and beyond. The never-ending stream of recent EPA actions designed to put coal out of business, utility MACT rule, boiler MACT rule, ozone rule, coal combustion residuals rule, particulate matter rule, new source performance rule, and clean air interstate rule has taken its toll on my district. Coal-fired generation facilities are shuttering. Mines have been idled, miners laid off, equipment sales continue to slow, and while jobs are down, electric rates continue to go up on the hard-working people of the United States of America. And those are just the direct effects of EPA actions. Secondary effects in this war on coal permeate into nearly every aspect of life for many of my constituents. The local car dealer who no longer sells as many cars because coal miners can no longer afford them. The mom-and-pop diner whose lunch business has slowed. The insurance salesman, the movie theater, the grocery store, the family physician, the local hospital. All are casualties of varying severity of the EPA's war on coal. It's time that we use our budgetary authority to cut funding to the EPA and provide much-needed relief to my constituents and the nation at large. The EPA is an agency that is out of control. From 1972 until 2011, the number of EPA employees increased by 107%, while the number of total federal personnel decreased by 15%. In the District of Columbia alone, the EPA occupies space in 14 different buildings. Since 2008, according to the Federal Register, the EPA has published and put into effect 2,313 rules. According to one study in 2012, complying with EPA regulations cost the U.S. economy $353 billion. If widely known, I believe the American people would find these facts to be outrageous. As elected representatives, we must hold the EPA accountable and use the power of the purse to limit further harm to the American economy. I look forward to working with you to cut the EPA's budget and in so doing help improve the quality of life for my constituents and many of yours. A previous witness said earlier this morning, we should not minimize the plight of the poor. I agree. The best way to do so is to not have as many unnecessary, harmful regulations that are killing jobs in our country. Thank you again for allowing me to testify, and I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentleman for his testimony. I yield to the ranking member if he has questions.
What has happened in the state of Virginia over the last 40 years in terms of employees that are involved with environmental protection or regulation, or however you want to term it?
Well, I don't know about the employees in the state of Virginia. Now, the DEQ, when they're not being dictated to, that would be the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, has done a fairly good job. Now, sometimes they've been dictated to.
Just wondered, would you be surprised if in 40 years the number of people who are involved with air and water and environmental compliance in Virginia doubled over the last 40 years?
That would not surprise me per se, although it would be somewhat surprising in light of the fact that the number of operating mines has greatly decreased.
EPA and the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality has more to do than just deal with mines, does it not?
Well, they do, absolutely, no question about that.
Do you think the dramatically reduced natural gas prices have had anything to do with what you claim is a war on coal and people using less of it or switching to alternative fuels? Has that had anything to do with?
I would submit that it has not had a great deal to do with it, that mainly it's the regulations, and let me tell you why. At $4 a 1,000 cubic feet, coal and natural gas produce about the same amount of BTUs. So coal can compete when natural gas is at $4. Now, it's true that over the course of the last couple of years, it's been under $4. But last week it was at $4.48. The price is expected to hover in that $4.50 to $6 range over the next several years and stabilize in that range. In that range, coal can compete just fine. What is really happening is that there's a fear that the war on coal will be successful, and people are afraid to invest in new coal facilities, coal burning facilities. Coal electric generation plants are being shut down because of regulations, and as a result, we're selling less coal.
You don't think the dramatic reduction in natural gas prices and increase in supply has had any effect on that?
Price has an effect over the short run, but when you're looking at the long run trends, the price does not appear to be a major factor. What is a major factor are the over-regulation of the use of coal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Griffith, isn't it also true that the EPA has recently announced, in my opinion at least, or some folks' opinion, a war on natural gas? Isn't there a move to overregulate natural gas too, or can you comment on that?
Well, I don't know that the EPA has done that. I will say that the Sierra Club, which started its initial situation, I forget the exact title, but Beyond Coal, has now started, whatever that title was for coal, has now started a similar program for natural gas. So while I don't think that we can say that the EPA has started going down that path yet, clearly there are signs that their allies in the Sierra Club and other organizations are definitely moving in that direction.
It's my recollection that the war on coal started the same way.
That is correct.
Yeah. I'm from a coal-producing state as well, and I'll use the term parochial again. And I didn't take your testimony to be parochial. I think this
Well, I
is
appreciate
a national issue.
There are about half the states that produce coal in this country.
Right. And to me, I appreciate your comment about the funding level for the EPA. And did your testimony suggest that you'd zero out the EPA?
Absolutely not.
Right.
There are a lot of great things that the EPA does and has done. The problem is that they've got these new waves of regulations, and the technology to comply with those regulations is not there yet. It might be there in 7 to 10 years, but a lot of these regulations, it's just not commercially feasible for companies to go forward with it, and particularly when you're looking at the new power plants. You know, there's one plant in the country that might be able to comply. If you're located at a lignite site that happens to be near an oil well, you might be able to comply with the new regulations, and that's the only way you can do it with the technology that's available today. Now, I'm very hopeful that chemical looping will come on board, and then we can all sing Kumbaya and get along together. If chemical looping is able to be made affordable and actually works, then we can end up with burning of coal to power jobs, to power our homes, and to power our factories, and at the same time produce no gases other than carbon dioxide, which then comes out in a pure form. And as you know, carbon capture is about 60% of capture and sequestration.
I thank the gentleman for his testimony.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.